Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Sandoval, and I am the chair for the Philadelphia chapter of the IGDA. And I want to thank you all for being here for our December chapter meeting. Tonight, all of us are excited to be back for the annual Student Game Showcase for Camden County College's Game Design Development Program. This is always a big event, especially for myself, having graduated from this program way back in the spring of 2008, and having been through all of the trials and tribulations these students have been through to be able to share with you the games that they've been working on. Before we kick things off, if you don't know who we are, the International Game Developers Association is a global organization dedicated to the advocacy and well being of game developers all around the world. Here in Philadelphia, we are particularly interested in our large academic and independent body as much as we are the growing incorporated industry as well, with more studios cropping up in our city every day. One way in which we do that is with these monthly meetings, which are usually held on the second Tuesday of each month. This is a special occasion for a very special event, but typically we do them on the second Tuesday of each month. And I'll have more details on our January meeting at the end of tonight's proceedings. You can also follow us on social media, such as Twitter or Facebook, or visit our website at philly.igda.org. One last thing, we do have a code of conduct. It was posted a little bit earlier in the chat if you need a link. But please be sure to review the full text. Again, it's on philly.igda.org. But in short, IGDA meetings and digital spaces such as this and our Discord community are inclusive, safe spaces. So please be respectful in your communication to everyone, regardless of if we meet in person or remotely, such as tonight's proceedings. That's all for me. With that, it is both a pleasure and an honor to hand things over to the maestro for the evening, Ryan Morrison, my good friend and professor of the game design and development program for Camden County College. Take it away, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Adrian, and thank you very much to the Philadelphia chapter of the IGDA for always being so supportive of us and what we do over at Camden County. I got very excited to be invited into this, and the students all rallied behind me for it. They're all very excited as well. So our program, as you all know, is pretty long running in the region and the industry, and we're very excited to keep moving through these crazy times. And it's been challenging, as you all know, but all in all, I'm very proud of what the students have accomplished this semester. And I really look forward to seeing their presentations because I haven't seen them yet. So this is new for me as well. So I'm going to dip off in a second. I'm going to turn it over to the Omega lead for game two, whose name is Jazz Lopez. And then Jazz is going to pitch it back over to Aiden Outhouse, who is the project lead for game three. So without any further ado, Jazz, go for it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am going to begin our presentation now.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Johnny Clark, and I am part of the Game Design and Development 2 program at Camden County College. As we're all very aware, 2020 has been one of the most difficult years for everyone, but it hasn't stopped us from creating our first game. Now, while it's very easy to succumb to the dread that 2020 has imposed upon the Earth, we decided to embrace the chaos and form our team, aptly named Dumpster Fire Productions. Brian Aviles, Dylan Pence, and myself focused our time staring at pixels with drawing tablets in hand, bringing the visuals of the story to life as the art department, while Chai Mitchell and Harrison Tran compute the concept into reality into our programming department. Jaslyn Lopez was the heading of our Omega role for the project, making sure that our design documents and marketing are fun and memorable. And of course, I can't forget Gabriel Smyers, the team's go-to guy, who not only created the music, helped bridge the work between the art and programming departments, but also came up with the entire concept for the game himself. Before I get into details about our game, it was no easy task to make our first game 100% remote from one another, but we persisted, creating something that hopefully you all will enjoy. I, like the rest of our team and our Professor Ryan Morrison, were all dreading an all-online semester. With COVID-19, political unrest, murder hornets, and the multitude of other terrible things that have happened this year, our first meeting of the semester was a bit gloomy, until Gabriel said, we should make a game about funny. And in that instance, all of the gears in our heads started turning. After plenty of brainstorming, we came up with our project, The Virus Amongst Us. The Virus Amongst Us is an 8-bit dark comedy platformer where you play as the Masked Ranger, who was forced to leave their idyllic cabin retreat due to an unforeseen gender reveal forest fire, only to discover that the rest of the world has been ravaged by the deadly COVID-19 virus. Your goal in this game is to assist the Masked Ranger on their journey from the woods back to their home and to the love of their life, Darla. Equipped with a mask, a yardstick to keep social distance, of course, and a water gun filled with hand sanitizer, you set across precedented landscapes in such unprecedented times. Your journey will not be an easy one, as the usual route home is now filled with dangers, such as the masklets, who walk around coughing and sneezing, providing the virus with more power, and the takers, who cause no harm to the Masked Ranger, so it's best to just sneak by them. And of course, everyone's favorite real-life nightmare, murder hornets. There will be a few bosses and weapon upgrades along the way, including a cool gun that shoots masks. During the project, Brian, Dylan, and myself brought the story to life by creating the characters, creatures, and world in which they live. We gave ourselves a challenge to create graphics in a style that none of us had ever worked in before. The transition from creating art for fun to having to work with other people on a team to create something that is consistent and fun to look at is no easy one, especially in the work from home setting. Yet we created sprites, tile sets, weapons, murder hornets, and a ton of other things that are fun and aesthetically pleasing. We created levels that have different vibes to fit the surroundings while providing each level with its own unique atmosphere. To give an air of mystery and to comply with CDC regulations, we decided to make our hero, the Masked Ranger, wear a full face mask. It allows you, the player, to see yourself as the Masked Ranger as they traverse the hellscape which is now.
Huh? Oh, right. Hey there, everyone. My name is Jaslyn, Jazz for short, and I worked as the Omega for The Virus Amongst Us. As the Omega, my first task was to compile and design the PPD and GDD, to take concept art, story, mechanics, and all of the written aspects of the game and put them into a neat, beautiful, and slightly foreboding package. While a large portion of my work isn't viewed by the public, it's important to produce aesthetically pleasing design documents and have the concept clearly laid out in front of them. I also designed the questionnaire and administered the playtest to our wonderful group of game testers, then collected their feedback and relayed their critiques, compliments, and suggestions back to the rest of the team. The most visible part of my work, however, is the level design, deciding what great heights the Masked Ranger must climb and where giant pits will lay, causing the Masked Ranger to fall to their doom and ultimately their route to safety.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harrison Tran, and I worked on the programming team for The Virus Amongst Us. We used GameMaker 2 for this game because it was the engine we were most familiar with. Its easy-to-use interface helped us immensely while creating our first game. While the art team is responsible for making everything look good, it was Chai and myself's job to make it operational, with Gabriel's help, of course. During the course of the project, we created combat systems so that the Masked Ranger could fight against the enemy AI that we also created. We learned how to create worlds from a mechanical standpoint, how to make the Masked Ranger interact with their surroundings, how to make the sprites animate smoothly, and how to get the most out of the GameMaker 2 engine. We also played the game tons and tons of times to make sure that we had worked out all of the bugs.
We at Dumpster Fire Productions would like to thank you for joining us and listening about our project, The Virus Amongst Us. While 2020 has definitely sucked, we channeled our collective frustration and general woe with the world and decided to combat it with some cheeky humor and persistence to create a topical game where people can blast away their quarantine blues. to create a game where people can take out their frustrations by spraying hand sanitizer onto maskless people, which we do not recommend doing in real life. To create a world as chaotic and as absurd as our own. But in this world, you can push people back with a 6-foot stick in the supermarket when they get entirely close for no reason. While we faced many trials and tribulations these last few months, the ability to work together to create a fun escape from 2020 has been a pleasure. Thank you, and now to hand this over to our producer and professor extraordinaire, Ryan Morrison.
That was great, Jazz.
Thank you.
All right, we'll do questions at the very end with everybody for each group. So just remember, if you have a question for Dumpster Fire, you can ask during the session. But then, we'll do some Q&A at the very end as well. So I'm really excited about that. That was a lot of fun. So I'm excited to see all the gameplay come together. And the game's very frustrating, so it's wonderfully frustrating. So. All right, so we're going to turn this over now to Aiden Outhouse, who is the project lead for Game 3. They are in the first 15 weeks of their project as per our program. They will continue in the spring and work through till May. So what you'll be seeing is their first functional prototype. You're going to see a version of their analog game as well. So take it away, Aiden.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aiden Allhouse, and I'm the team lead of Must Pass Inc., as you've heard. This team has worked so incredibly hard to produce a project we can all be proud of this semester and show off as an integral portfolio piece. We all have much to learn and experience, and that being said, the project reflects all of our knowledge thus far. The time we spent participating in these courses together has been important to our education in the game design field. So, Must Pass Inc. is a student game development team based in South Jersey made of 14 people. Our team is split up into 3 divisions with a leader for each. But though lacking in experience, we make up for it in passion and ambition. We've been working remotely due to the current pandemic, as you know, and while it's been tough, it has taught us a lot. Now, I'll give it away to the rest of the team to go and introduce themselves.
All right. Hi, my name's Ali, and I'm a part of the Omega team. Omega is what we call those who work on writing, documentation, and sound. I've been helping with pretty much anything and everything within these bounds. I've helped with character building, the story, making the sounds, making the music, and have also been directing the analog card game. This is my second time being Omega, and I find it enjoyable to be a jack of all trades and help whenever I can. Allow me to introduce my fellow Omega, Trey. Can Trey talk?
Trey?
One second.
Okay, there I am. Hello, my name is DeAndre, and I'm in charge of sound design and documentation for our game. I work together with the rest of Must Pass Inc. to come up with the general feel of the game, and I'm partnered with my teammate Oliver to come up with the story, world building, and my favorite part of the process, the music.
Now to our art speaker for tonight, Franny.
Hello, everyone. My name is Franny. I am the technical artist for Must Pass Inc. That means I'm in charge of animating enemies and other characters, though most of my responsibility has been with animating the game's enemies. Now, to introduce the art team. First and foremost, our art lead, Blake.
My name is Blake Jung. I am the team's art director. The art team's role is to create art assets for both the Omegas and programmers. We're charged with designing, drawing, and animating. I assign, review, and critique work to and from the artists, set deadlines, and help with animations.
One of our character designers, Gabe.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabe. I'm one of the character artists on the team. I help design a lot of the enemies and the main characters for the game.
Our other character designer, Kevin.
Hello, my name is Kevin, and I'm the co-creator on character and creature design. I created the concept art and the final design of some of the aims of the game.
Our object and level designer, Stuart.
Hello, my name is Stuart, and I'm in charge of creating the game's objects as well as design the game's levels.
Danny, who's focused on promotion, and our background artist, Chris.
Hey, my name is Ryan, and I am one of the programmers here at Must Pass Inc. I make sure everything works with the game as well as level transitions within Hydro Hero. Here is Justin, one of our other programmers.
Hi, my name is Justin, and I'm one of the programmers on the team. One of the things I did was make sure the player was able to move and was able to fight in the game.
Our other programmers, Blair and Shoshana, could not make it tonight. Blair, who is our programmer lead, and Shoshana, who worked on items and character placements. Now back to Ollie for the game overview.
Hydro Hero is a game inspired by Norse mythology with a story centered around modern-day firefighting. Sentient fire creatures, born from the negative thoughts and emotions of people, wreak havoc over the island of Vatten City. Nav, our firefighting main protagonist, must put an end to their reign. Our digital game is a side-scrolling action platformer. It takes a lot of inspiration from classic Flash games from both the gameplay and the presentation. The sentient fine creatures we call Ignites make up the bulk of the enemies Nav will encounter. The main antagonist and final boss, Emperor Ignitus, is the one responsible for their initial creation. Along the way, Nav gets help from the ancient water serpent Hormungandr, who gives her the legendary spear. Our card game is one that is quick and easy to play. It, of course, is inspired by the characters, items, and mythology of our digital game. It is excellent for parties, quick rounds between games, and waiting on things to do with friends. Now we're going to move on to our sound department. As for the sound department of our game, Hydro Hero, we worked very hard collectively and separately on the music for the game. We hope you enjoyed the soundtrack and sound effects of Hydro Hero. We'll play our main menu music before going through some of our sound effects. Now we're moving on to the sound effects. The sound effects of the games are everything from sampling sounds from our everyday life to bending and making sounds on our own within a program, whether that be an FL Studio, GarageBand, or Music Maker Jam. Here are the Health Heal, Hormungandr Summon, Etcher Heal, and Spear sound effects in that order. Now I'm going to go hand it back off to Franny, our art speaker.
Hydro Hero is filled with characters influenced by Norse mythology with a modern twist. There are two sides, the firefighters and the Ignites. The firefighting forces are an organized group of fighters who have devoted their lives to defend mankind from the threat of the Ignites. Nav is the main character of our game, and the hero who takes on the Ignites at the front lines. Yang is Nav's mentor. Jormungandr is a legendary sea serpent that blesses Nav, allowing her to summon his avatar to the mortal planes to battle the Ignites. The Ignites are creatures of chaos that will stop at nothing to burn down all of the human world. Emperor Ignitus is the leader of the Ignites and the final boss of the game. The Fire Wisps are small and weak enemies. The Sapphire Wisps are a stronger variant of the Fire Wisps. The Infernos are aerial enemies. And then Fire Jotuns, who are the largest foe in the game. There are two variants within the game, all of which are devoted to serving the Emperor. Here's Ryan with the mechanics.
Hydro Heroes may seem like your everyday hack and slash due to the basic mechanics, running, jumping, attacking, and blocking, but I assure you there is much more to this game that makes it stand out. For starters, the combat system of Hydro Hero relies heavily on timing, whether you are attacking using your spear or blocking with your shield. which means enemy attacks will punish you dramatically until you get the hang of it. The other mechanic that I would like to discuss is the health system. The health system in Hydro Heroes will be set at 100% at first spawn. The player's health will decrease if you are hit by an enemy or land in fire, which means that you have to stay on your toes at all times. When your health reaches 0 on the health bar, you die. Dying puts you back at the closest respawn point with full health so you can try again. Next are the collectibles that you can pick up around the levels. Within the 3 levels, you will find a few type of collectibles. The E-tier tanks that will restore some of the E-tier to Nav, as well as allowing you to use your ultimate ability. The health pack that will restore some health to Nav, and the red potion that will fully restore health. Last is the engine that we use to build our game. We used the Unity engine. The Unity is a great software that allows all of our programmers to work together as a team on parts of the game. It has an amazing community support to help with any questions that we may encounter along the way. Now with the level previews. Level 1, in a 2-story house in the Den housing district, Nav must put out every flame she sees and destroy any ignites in her way. Players must make their way through the living room, clear out the upstairs bedroom, then drop down and exit from the kitchen. Level 2. In Level 2, Nav traverses through the Vatten Forest, using her spear to battle infernos off with nothing but sheer intensity and grit. As she goes deeper into the forest, Nav enters a cave that holds the legendary water spear made by the godly serpent Jormungandr. And for Level 3. Level 3 is the Flint and Iron Industrial Complex. It is the final area of the game. Nav must traverse across scaffolding, steel beams, and forklifts to take down the last of the Ignites and their leader, Emperor Ignitus. Back to Franny with the merchandise overview.
We expect to be finished by spring of next year. We plan to sell our digital game, analog game, and offer bundles that include variations of the digital game, analog game, soundtrack, tin cases, stickers, and a pin. Now we'll move to the gameplay section featuring clips from our analog and digital game.
Hello, and thank you for joining the analog game of Hydro Hero, the card games. I want to give a special thanks to Franny, Gabe, Kevin, Blake, and Aiden for helping me make the card game. This is the Nav deck. The character card is Nav herself. She has 3 blessed water hoses, 2 firefighters, 1 med kit, 1 search and rescue, and 1 final spear in her deck. And then the fire giant has 1 fire giant with 15 health, 3 fire minions, 2 fire infernos, 1 oil heal, 1 fire damage, and 1 ultimate blaze card. This is the setup for the game. Character cards in the middle, play pile to the right, discard pile to the left. Let's zoom in on the action. Round 1, here we go. Round 1, we have a final spear versus a fire minion. Final spear deals 5, fire minion takes 1, 5 minus 1 equals 4. The fire giant loses 4 health points for round number 1. Here we go. You can see the fire giant has 11 health and Nav has 15. Each has a discard, each has 7 in their play pile left. Round 2. Firefighter versus a Fire Inferno. They each have 3 points of damage, so 3 minus 3 equals 0. This constitutes as a cancel. So nothing happens this round. They each have the same health pool. The only thing that changed is the discard and play pile. 6 and 2 in each. Round 3, here we go. Search and Rescue versus Ultimate Blaze. The Fire Giant plays his biggest card in the deck. It's just 5 points. But Nav gets to search through his deck. And when he searches through his deck, she gets to take out a card. So he fans his deck. That's all the cards he has left. Let's say she wants to take the middle one. She takes the middle one out. It's completely out of play for this round. Once out of play for this round, he gets stunned for the next round. So you can see now 4 and 4 on each for Fire Giant, 5 and 3 for Nav. Nav goes on to play her heal card. She gets the heal for free this round. She heals for 3 points, so she is now at 13 health. So he's in the lead. And it would go on like this, so on and so forth for Hydro Hero, the card game. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this simple game.
Hello everyone, it's Aiden again, and I will be covering the digital preview section in our preview section of our presentation. This presentation will be going over level 1 and reviewing basic mechanics that were in the mechanics section. So, that being said, it's going to be player movement, combat, enemies, obstacles, and things of that nature. Keep in mind as we go through this that this is a rough copy. Our programmers have been working very hard, and there are programmers that are still new and learning and adapting. And without further ado, let's begin. So, as you can see here, here's our player character. When you press A, the character moves left. D moves the character right. W will move the character up in a jump. And left clicking, the character will attack. Over here to the left, you can see some of our original art assets, as well as art in the background. And right here, this hole is an example of our very first obstacle. So, when Nav falls down this hole, Nav will restart at the nearest checkpoint. And across this hole, as you may have seen, here are some health bottles, as explained in the mechanics section. Picking these up will restore health. And here's an example of a fire wisp enemy. Left clicking on them when at appropriate range will kill them, and a small sound effect will play and they will drop off of the screen. The same thing with this fire wisp, you can do the same. And now, as the script is mentioned earlier in the game preview, Nav will proceed into the building, the Camden Firehouse District. And moving onward, here's a wisp and an example of a fire obstacle. So, when the player touches this obstacle, they will return back to the beginning of the level, just as the hole. So I'll be avoiding this. Based on the jump mechanic. And this couch is an example of an impassable object, but the player has to use their jump mechanic to get over it and use platforming. So there are a couple of these objects in this level just to make it a little bit more interesting in the pace of jumping around. Here's another hole obstacle that I'll be jumping over. Here's more fire wisps and more fire obstacles. And now this is the part where Nav will proceed up the stairs into the attic portion of the level. Now, this bed is an example of another platforming obstacle. So the player will have to use the height of the staircase to jump over onto the bed. Moving onward, Nav jumps to here. And here's an example of the full health kit that the player can pick up and restore Nav to full health. Moving on, here's an example of our flying enemy over here to the left, and you'll notice that when they die, just like the wisp, they will float down. And onto the stool, Nav has to jump onto. And here's an example of the sapphire wisp as it goes back and forth. I'm going to attempt to jump over the fire wisp to this segment and jump further into the level. So right here is where the attic is cleared, as stated in our demo before. And right down in that hole is where you'll drop down and proceed to the rest of level 1. But I will cut it short here as this video is getting long, and I've showed off most of our primary mechanics. I'd like to thank all the programmers for working hard this semester. We've all been working extremely hard to make sure that we can get this right and make sure that we can actually have a presentable project. But thank you for your time, and I'll proceed. All right. Thank you, IGDA, for sticking with us through this presentation. It's been very difficult working on this game with the COVID outbreak, and it's overall been pretty difficult, and there's a lot of adjusting to do with things such as Zoom calls and things of that nature. But I'm very proud to be able to have worked on this and get to work with this incredible team. And I'd also like to thank the CCC game design courses for facilitating this and giving us this very important experience. And with that, we are done here.
Great job, Aiden. Thank you so very much. You guys worked really hard on this, man, especially putting it together in a short period of time. So I'm super proud of you guys, and the progress that you're making on the game is incredible. I can't wait to see it in May. Maybe we'll invite everybody back to check it out.
Sounds good.
Does anybody have any questions for either of the groups? You can either text in the Q&A area, or please feel free to ask away. Raise your hand, maybe.
I have a couple of questions that I wrote down, but also I saw it was addressed in the Q&A section, but I didn't know if we wanted to go over that live as well. The one question's in the Q&A right now.
Sure, we can. Yeah. So the question was, for every team, how did you coordinate from a distance? GitHub, Perforce, some plugins. Initially, for basic setup and things, we used Zoom, Canvas, Slack, email, text, Google Drive. You know, it was different for each person. Most of my students are working students, so scheduling and things like that are always a challenge. But utilization of the tools that we have had and the expansion of tools that exist now have been really helpful. So Zoom specifically.
All right, cool. So for dumpster fire games, you're in game 2, which for those out there who don't know, game 2 is the one where they do a game, usually a 2D game in 15 weeks, and it's the first time for a lot of folks, their first time ever working on a game, period. And making games in a short period of time is a very, very challenging and hard thing to do, especially when it's not, and even more so now that it has to be remote. So I was wondering for that team specifically, could you talk a little bit about the experience working on a game for 15 weeks and having to do it remotely? Again, especially if this is for some of you, I imagine, your first time making a game.
Well, yeah, definitely. It was our first time actually making a game. It was very difficult doing it from a distance because, you know, having to coordinate with everyone and, you know, their schedule. And sometimes people couldn't make meetings, and sometimes people just, you know, took forever to reply. But I mean, we were all patient and it was just difficult, but we managed somehow.
Interesting enough, Adrian, it's a very small group of people, seven total in the group, in the entire class. So we even had to massage it a little bit to get the class to carry. It was just one of those weird semesters. But what was exciting about that is that it was such a small class, so everybody kind of had to hop too. And what was really funny about it is that nobody wanted to be project lead, so everybody ended up having to make all the decisions and things like that. So you know, everybody was just in charge of a different area. So it ended up being an interesting dichotomy compared to previous semesters.
That is really interesting, and also I imagine a lot more manageable with a small team, having people just kind of in their bubble and working together a little bit more in that capacity.
Oh yeah,
so that's good.
Way less hide.
I would also wonder if we could tell a little bit more about the mechanics for the game. I definitely got a lot about the theme of the theme and how you're kind of going for that kind of dark comedy feel, which I thought was really interesting and definitely an original concept compared to some of the other games I've seen out of the program before. But also, I just wanted to know a little bit more about how it played. Clearly, it's a side-scrolling platformer of some variety, but I wasn't really clear if it was a shooter or if there were other kinds of mechanics. So I was kind of curious about that.
Well, yeah, it is a side scroller. There is jumping. You do have platforms like during the first level, actually, you have the platforms on the trees. You end up shooting the massless and your enemies. And it's mostly just jumping around your enemies and trying to finagle a way to hit them.
Very cool. Rob asks in the chat, and I assume this is for everybody. Other than the pandemic issue, what was the most unexpected challenge you faced as a team? So we'll put that up for Dumpster Fire and then for the Hydro Hero team.
Well, the most unexpected challenge that we faced was honestly not being able to be around one another. I mean, having to do everything remotely was a challenge. I mean, like I said, not a lot of people could be there when we needed them. And sometimes it took a while to hear back from them. So it was really just not being able to be in the classroom and having the professor to talk to whenever we actually needed him there.
Yeah, I would have to agree with most of the same reasons there. It's like getting consistent, like knowing when people are working on something or availabilities. Even when we would get schedules, sometimes there'd be a gray area trying to reach out to somebody. It definitely feels a lot more easier to facilitate everything when everybody's meeting in person. It was very unexpected at times with communication dropping, even though, we do use digital communication apps to always talk to each other. Ironically, sometimes those media platforms would fail. Sometimes people wouldn't have their phones on, or people would be asleep or something. So there's a lot of inconsistent issues that would happen just because this whole pandemic hit, and we thought going into it would be easier, but it was very unexpected.
Um, I would say one of the most difficult things was because we have such a large team, we had different sections, and with different leads to different sections, it kind of caused us to all stay within our own zones. And communication, like Aiden said, was a huge problem because between the programmers doing their own thing and the artists doing their own thing and our Omegas doing their own thing, no one was really facilitating conversation between these different departments. And there was a lot of conflict in that regard.
Yeah, definitely understand that. For again for the Hydro Hero team, I'm sorry I'm blanking on the team name real quick, but I'm curious how it was working on both a digital game and an analog game at the same time. And I know that like part of that analog work was, thank you Ryan, Must Pass Inc. Some of that work was being done by a one particular designer, but I was kind of curious about having to kind of communicate the vision between both both folks working on the analog game and working on the digital game, as well as the challenges there.
Yeah, so balancing that analog and digital game, I from the very first beginning of the semester, I was thinking of ways in which to coordinate that, and the ways that I really did that was that I chose one of our Omegas and had them be a lead designer on that and communicate with the team on art assets and things like that. And I selected 3 artists to communicate to that lead and distribute art that they were making for the digital game, also to be made for the card game. So a lot of our card game due dates would coincide with our digital game. So a lot of the things we would get in would be kind of be simultaneous, and they did a great job. I mean, I was overlooking it, but I mostly let them kind of just have creative flow and dictate what they did for it, and I just put out due dates and would see as they would go along. But yeah, we mostly just tried to combine. There's a majority of people's focus were on analog while still working on the digital, and then there's people that were 100% on the digital, and that's how we sort of broke it up to get the analog done at the same time.
Yeah, and I was the creator of the analog games, and then I also helped with the sounds and some of the music and some of the documentation for the digital game. So sometimes, on my off days, if I wasn't at one of my jobs, I would be, making music in FL Studio or writing a portion of the GDD or finishing up the story, and then, take a coffee break or a tea break or go to the gym, and then ultimately go and start on the analog game. So it was kind of just trying to divide and conquer my time between both of them and not giving one more attention than the other, which was pretty difficult. But I had a lot of help from who Aiden just said. Franny, Gabe, and Kevin were the analog team artists, and then Blake and Aiden also helped a lot too, and they kind of cheered me on. And the whole team, making the rules of the analog game, you have to play test, and they would say we want this, well, add this to it, take this rule out. So it was kind of just a big balance, just like everything else is, just one big balancing act.
Nice. I'd also like to hear a little bit more about the game's theme and story. I think that idea of kind of like doing modern day firefighting mixed with Norse mythology is very different and very unique. And I'm kind of curious, like a little bit more to hear more about that, and also like what inspired that idea initially.
Okay, so this was a very interesting one. We had a few spitballing sessions on Zoom at the beginning of the semester, just trying to decide what the game would be about. And I just, as an offhand joke, was like, we would get in a lot of trouble if we made some sort of game about arson. And obviously it was a joke, but then we started talking about the idea of firefighters. And we're like, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a side scroll about firefighters? That's a new type of, thing. Like nobody's really done something like that, like this kind of firefighter simulator type game. And so we just sort of, evolved onto that in the meeting. We kept stacking things up, and people were like, "Oh, let's add mythology to it. We like mythology." And there's so many different things were brought up for the inspiration, and it's gone back and forth, and it's had kind of a design crisis at times because people would suggest a bunch of things. We're like, "Oh, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that," and then we had to backpedal a little bit. So now, by the end product, we have this mixture, a concoction of a bunch of different inspirations, but largely it starts with the firefighting 2D platformer and having just this character that fights fires in this setting, which it's very interesting and original, and it just started as a joke, which it's fun. It's just a fun concept that came about.
Yeah, and also to add to that, being one of the Omegas and having Trey help me with the story and create it. One of my really good childhood friends is a firefighter, and he always tells me crazy stories and stuff like that. He's actually had to put out my other best friend's house fire before. So just hanging around him before the pandemic, we'd go to the bar and stuff like that and talk. So he always had crazy stories to tell me, and that was also in the back of my head when we were kind of coming up with the vision of the game.
Nice. To dumpster fire games. Question. My big question now is that you've went through the 15 weeks. You've worked on this game for a while now. Are you planning on continuing or doing anything with it now that the semester is over? Like maybe over the summer, do some like expansion work on it, or fix up anything you didn't get a chance to do?
I mean, honestly, I am so on board for doing that if, the team is up for it, because honestly, like I was just the Omega. I didn't do any programming at all. But if they're willing to, I would definitely try to keep up with it and tweak it up a bit and make it look nicer and really presentable as a video game.
Very cool. And for Must Pass, on a similar note, you still have another semester plus the small break that you have. I'm kind of curious to hear what's the roadmap for next semester. What things still need to be worked on? I know you have 2 more levels, but is there anything else? And if you want to talk a little bit more about the marketing, you mentioned the different products that you're making to promote the game. What's the roadmap for next semester?
Aiden, before you jump in, can I just say one quick thing? I have encouraged my students to take a few weeks off. Um, they have worked very intensely, and I believe a break is not only deserved but needed in some capacity. I think they should all breathe for a minute. We have different levels of intensity all over the team, which is very exciting. I agree. I agree, Rob, completely. Like taking a little break is not going to be bad. I think them working independently is a wonderful thing, and I'll encourage them to do that and then to regroup in January. But please, Aiden, go ahead. I'm sorry I jumped in.
Yeah, that's fine. So the roadmap from here, I've really been trying to construct like a list, a mental list of the amount of things that we definitely need improvement on going forward. Definitely, I want to see programmers work more on our build that we currently have, and we've been starting a system of kind of getting documentation down with Google Forms and passing it out to the team, commenting on the builds and improvements. So that's going to continue into the next semester. We're hopefully, we'll start to see those improvements implemented with time. Things with our team communication, stuff like that, I've been keeping a note of, and I'm hoping, leading into the next semester, we can improve upon those things. But as it stands, I'm going to continue to make due dates regularly to try to keep pushing out more progress between our digital and analog game. And that's essentially the plan right now. Just start to improve our team's communication and improve any negative things that we may have experienced this semester, and continue to output work at our best.
Yeah, and to add to that, for the analog game, it only has 8 playable cards right now, so we're looking to add more. Not sure on the number, but just to kind of reinforce what Aiden said and what I've been thinking a lot about kind of throughout the whole semester. It's kind of a cheesy quote from Wall-E, one of the creators from Pixar. He said, our movies are never finished. They just have a due date. And that's kind of, guess, how video games are the same way. Like, they just have a due date, but they're never truly finished. But we're going to try to give it our all and try to finish it to the best we can. So I take a lot of inspiration from that with everything.
It's a good quote. I like that. But I'll also say, and I agree with Ryan. Please do take that break and please recharge. We here at IGDA, not just the Philly branch, but the national branch, has a pretty strong stance on crunch, which is don't do it. Try your best to, like, no game is worth the physical and mental toll. But that being said, it's really great to hear about all the hard work that you're putting into this, and I'm looking forward to seeing the advancements that happen over the next semester. That really looks really good. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? I'm that's kind of got what I had. Anyone else in the chat or otherwise have any questions for our teams?
Adrian, I just wanted to comment and thank you again for the opportunity for our students to be able to showcase their work. With everything that's been going on, I was afraid that it was going to go on deaf ears, and it didn't, and you made that possible. So I truly appreciate all the work you've been doing, and Rob and Karen, especially through everything, and all the support that the Philly IGDA gives us. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate your kind words. Rob does have a. Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, Rob does have one more question for our teams. What would you do differently on your next project?
I suppose I'll start on this one. Differently for my project, like, does that mean thematically or like how we went about our process?
I would say I would say probably the process, but if Rob wants to clarify, Rob, you're already on. You can go ahead.
Yeah, process-wise, what would you do differently?
I feel like our team definitely, especially from a leadership position, I felt like I was not as hands-on as I should have been throughout all of our processes. There were some parts that I would have more of a concentration or focus on, and sometimes I would polish those a little bit more than other areas. And I've noticed that error, and I've actually written it down in reflection just to be like, I need to focus on every aspect as a leader. And I think that part of the process would really, changing that would have made a much better and cleaner product up to this point. But we still made our progression, and I still tried my hardest to get it that way. So
Yeah, I think especially in these early days of your career, as you're making your first games, like one of the teams tonight, I mean, it's every project you're learning something from. You go, oh, don't do it that way this time. Or I was like, we figured something out at the very end. Maybe we should start doing it at the beginning next time. And it's hard to do that when you first start the project. It's hard to look at it and go, oh yeah, this thing that seems tedious or busy work, these reports or this planning or having daily communications, whatever it is, I see it a lot with the senior projects at Drexel, that teams who start off having a sort of a looser connection, when the rubber meets the road and they really need to stay on top of things, they end up changing the way they work. And a lot of my job is trying to help them realize to adopt some of these methods earlier rather than later, and just build them into the DNA of the team. So this has been really cool to see the projects tonight, and to hear how well run and how well you guys all responded to a really insane situation, to try to, especially again, make your first game and have it come out so well. I applaud you. That's really impressive.
Jaslyn, did you have an answer for dumpster fire as well?
Well, I definitely have to agree with what Aiden said. It's after finishing and, well, at least almost being close to being done with the game, it is, you do realize the kind of things that you need to, possibly start first, or things that are going to take longer. And it's just more concentration, and definitely in a way, like, we should, probably communicate more as a team and make sure that, we're all on the same page.
Cool. All right. Put one more call out for questions in case there's anyone in the chat has anything. All right. I think that's it. Orion, do you have any other parting words for us?
No, keep making games. I'm looking forward to the jam coming up in January. I'm hoping to get our students involved, and I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday break and enjoys themselves and has some fun.
Me too. And just so Global Game Jam is coming up. It looks like Philly Game Mechanics is going to be doing something with that. So I'll please keep an eye and ear out on their website and the Twitter channel for more information of that. And we'll be sure on the IGA channels to share that as well. One other quick announcement I wanted to give, but real quick, I also want to say thank you, Ryan, so much. Thank you to all of the students. You have done an amazing thing. I tell all of my students in my class that making games is hard, and they're all a little miracle. And the fact that you were able to do what you did in such a short period of time is something to be really, truly proud of. You all have done an amazing thing here tonight. But really quickly, the last thing I had on the plate is I wanted to say for our January meeting, which is going to be on the second Tuesday of January, which I had pulled up and I lost it already. That is January 12th. We will be doing our annual town hall. So we're going to be talking about IGDA's plans for 2021. We've got some really, really cool things in the works that we're really excited to share. So we're hoping to get a good turnout too, because we want to have a good community hall so we can get questions from our community. So we encourage everybody who's here to please come out for that, and anybody who watches this on our YouTube channel to please come out on January 12th. Like I said, we're going to talk about our plans, but we also want to hear what you want to see IGDA to do in 2021. So one more time, thank you again so much to all of the students, and thank you again so much, Ryan, for doing this. This has been great.
Thanks, Sage.
Always one of my favorite things to do in the new year. All right.
Me too.
From all of us at Philadelphia IGDA, thank you again for coming out, and we will see you all again next month. Take care.